Welcome to the Purple Political Breakdown. How's it going? How's your day been? And we are back at it again, as always, trying to bridge the gap, or trying to find political solutions without political bias. Today, I'm going to be reacting to Joe Biden's immunity ruling reaction speech about it. If you don't know, the Supreme Court has currently ruled that Donald Trump, due to being the president, has partial immunity in official actions that is declared official acts of the president. And this immunity could potentially give a lot of power to the government, to the executive branch, to the president of the United States. This level of sovereignty and power into one entity, into one individual, potentially making him immune to a lot of official acts not being criminal. That right there, ladies and gentlemen, that right there is scary. But let me know your thoughts about the immunity. But let's hear what Joe Biden got to say.
The presidency is the most powerful office in the world. It's an office that not only tests your judgment, perhaps even more importantly, it's an office that tests your character. Because you not only face moments when you need the courage to exercise the full power of the presidency, you also
He already looks so much more coherent in this than in the debate. I don't if he gave us this type of, and I'm only like 10 seconds in, but right from rip, if he gave us this level of composure in the debate, he would have clearly destroyed Trump. Oh my goodness.
also face moments where you need the wisdom to respect the limits of the power of the office of the presidency.
He is completing full
This nation was founded on the principle that there are no kings in America. Each of us is equal before the law. No one is above the law, not even the President of the United States.
I'm not gonna pause too often. I'll wait until he says something like really important, and I don't want to talk over because a lot of y'all get pissed when I talk over. But I will make this 1.25 speed, and I'll real react to anything that's important. But one thing that I do want to point out is like the people who believe in the populist rhetoric that Donald Trump spouts on a consistent basis. You guys in particular, explain to me how giving more power to the president, executive branch, and the government, how is that a good thing, considering you guys are against the elites? I don't know. I'm very.
Today's Supreme Court decision on presidential immunity, that fundamentally changed. For all practical purposes, today's decision almost certainly means that there are virtually no limits on what the president can do. This is a fundamentally new principle.
This might be too fast for people. I'll just put it normal. I prefer 1.25 speed. I prefer 1.5 speed, to be honest. I might have ADHD. I can't really tell, but we'll put this at normal.
It's a dangerous precedent.
Agreed.
Because the power of the office will no longer be constrained by the law, even including the Supreme Court of the United States. The only limits will be self-imposed by the president alone. This decision today has continued the court's attack in recent years on a wide range of long-established legal principles in our nation, from gutting voting rights and civil rights, to taking away a woman's right to choose, to today's decision that undermines the rule of law of this nation.
That's a very interesting point. It's tough because I am in favor of giving more authority towards the states. I'm also in favor of not weakening the federal government, but making them responsible, very specific towards their intended purpose, right? Dealing with international affairs, dealing with potential threats to America, giving an overarching authority without going into specific principles of humanity and determining whether those are good or not. I do there are certain powers I think the federal government and the state government should have. I do think the state government should be generally.
Nearly 4 years ago, my predecessor sent a violent mob to the U.S. Capitol to stop the peaceful transfer of power. We all saw it with our own eyes. We sat there and watched it happen that day. attack on the police, the ransacking at the Capitol, a mob literally hunting down the House Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, gallows erected to hang the Vice President, Mike Pence. I think it's fair to say it's one of the darkest days in the history of America. Now the man who sent that mob to the U.S. Capitol is facing potential criminal conviction for what happened that day.
A little hiccup.
The American people deserve to have an answer in the courts before the upcoming election. The public has a right to know the answer about what happened on January 6th before they are asked to vote again this year. Now, because of today's decision, that is highly, highly unlikely. It's a terrible disservice to the people of this nation. So now the American people will have to do what.
This is a political strategy. I do think the people who say that Biden and the government and people don't want Trump to even run for office, I feel like that is a double-edged sword, in the sense that I think there's nothing wrong with if you perceive the guy as a threat to our democracy, threat to America, and overall a terrible, terrible person around the country. If you have that perspective, I don't see why the idea of you don't want them to run for office wouldn't be a bad thing, right? So to kind of go to the extremes for the big Trumpies that are out there. Now, I'm not using Trump, and I'm not making this analogous, but I want to paint a picture. If there is another Hitler who's trying to run for office, and you know for some weird reason that 51% of the America wants to put Hitler into office, but you know he's done terrible crimes, you as an individual who doesn't like Hitler would go like, yeah, I think he should be arrested before he goes into office. Yeah, I think he'd be a terrible person to run for office. So hopefully the picture is pretty clear, because I know the Trump supporters think that this guy is Jesus. But if that picture is very clear to you, the whole kind of rhetoric saying that Democrats and Biden, they don't want Trump to run for office because they're scared. I mean, I don't necessarily think that is a bad thing, especially if you deem Donald Trump a terrible person. Now, if you're kind of if you're doing something illegal to put him into jail, then nah. You can't win illegal with illegal, right? But making sure people are aware that this is something that is going on, doing your best, giving the best resources to find the truth, I think there's nothing wrong with that. And I just wanted to point that out, because people try to use that as a combatant, a counter towards Biden. But with that said, so far 2 minutes in,
The courts should have been willing to do, but will not.
pretty smooth.
The American people have to render a judgment about Donald Trump's behavior. The American people must decide whether Donald Trump's assault on our democracy on January 6th makes him unfit for public office in the highest office in the land. The American people must decide if Trump's embrace of violence to preserve his power is acceptable. Perhaps most importantly, the American people must decide if they want to entrust the president once again, the presidency, to Donald Trump, now knowing he'll be even more emboldened to do whatever he pleases whenever he wants to do it. You know, the outset of our nation, it was the character of George Washington, our first president, to define the presidency. He believed power was limited, not absolute. And that power always resides with the people, always. Right. Now, over 200 years later, with today's Supreme Court decision, once again, it'll depend on the character of the men and women who hold that presidency that are going to define the limits of the power of the presidency, because the law will no longer do it. I know I will respect the limits of the presidential.
Like, I really need y'all to think. The idea of a president who has bad moral character being immune to criminal charges, no matter what, apparently, from what I understand, basically no matter what, to an extent, it's crazy. I mean, they're still talking about it. They sent certain facts of the case to be delineated with the lower district courts, so we'll see how they rule on those things. But It's insane.
Powers I have for 3.5 years. But any president, including Donald Trump, will now be free to ignore the law. I concur with Justice Sotomayor's dissent today. Here's what she said. She said, in every use of official power, the president is now a king above the law. With fear for our democracy, I dissent. End of quote. Associate the American people dissent. I dissent. May God bless you all, and may God help preserve our democracy. Thank you. And may God protect our troops.
President Biden speaking there. You did hear a few questions shouted at the end. Were not answered. I want to bring back in my colleagues, MJ Lee, Jeff Zeleny, Van Jones, also with me.
He just left. Very interesting. He didn't even answer a single question. Very interesting. Very interesting indeed. I am concerned about Biden's competency, for sure. But he definitely looked better in that situation. We'll see how everything kind of plays out. But yeah, the partial immunity thing is it's a scary situation. It 100% is a scary situation considering the ramifications and the precedent that may potentially be set. But we'll see. Let me know what you guys think about it, of course. Like and subscribe. We're almost to 500 subscribers. I've got a lot of videos coming up that I think y'all will find interesting. And if you have any suggestions for past presidential debates that you want me to react to, let me know that as well. With that said, hope you guys enjoyed. Yeah, have a good one. Take care. And peace.